Hello, everyone. This is Kenneth Burton with Nashville Fashion Photographers. I'm here with Jonathan Thorpe, and we're going to do a short interview. He's given us some time this morning. He's a photographer located in Washington, D.C., and we're taking this morning, first of the year here, to talk about some of his experiences and learn a little bit and get inspired on some of the things he's working on and going to be doing this year. And, Jonathan, we just appreciate your time this morning.
No problem. I'm happy to be here. Happy to do this.
And we're doing an audio recording, so if you're listening to this, we're also doing a video recording, so you'll, on the blog, you'll be able to see what we're talking about, or you can listen either way. But we've got Jonathan's website pulled up, so as we're going through talking about some things, we'll be able to look at his work, look at some of the workshops he's doing this year, and be able to visit his unique website and unique style that he has. And we just want to go through and kind of learn some things that's doing here. I'm going to pull this down so that's not in the recording. So give us just a short overview of Jonathan Thorpe.
Sure. I'm a full-time photographer. I've been shooting full-time now going on 8 years. Before this, I was working in the optometry field, and then, one day I randomly got published for a photo I took. And the next day I quit my job and decided this was going to be the route that I took. No formal training in photography, just kind of picked up a camera and would study photos that I thought were interesting and, just try to match the lighting by looking at the shadows and where the highlights were and things like that. And just turned it into a career, and it's been great ever since. Wow.
That was a pretty quick turnaround. So you literally did a photo. What was that photo in comparison to some of the things you have now? Was it completely different, kind of random? Or?
It was terrible. It was a terrible picture. Going back looking at I still have it. It was at a music show, and I was just the artist on stage, and I took a few of the pictures of him with a point and shoot. At the time, I thought they looked great. Found his contact information online. Sent him the photo saying, hey, man, I was at your show the other night. Really liked your show, and here's some photos I took. I thought they looked cool. Never heard back. Figured he didn't get them, and then about 3 or 4 weeks later, I got a magazine in the mail, and he ended up using my photos from that show for a big interview he had for a national magazine. And my name was all over it, and I was published, so I just ran with it from there.
So was there a moment of silence or months and weeks of silence there as you go full-time and trying to kind of fill the pipeline and build business? What was that kind of the immediate transition with maybe a plan, maybe not? I'm not sure.
Yeah, there was definitely no plan. Growing up, I had no aspirations to be a photographer. I didn't think a full-time photographer was even a job. I had no information about the industry or about the business side of it, none of that. So when I made the decision to quit, I just kind of sat there. I was like, oh, man, what have I done? This is a terrible idea. I'm not ready for this type of thing. So I jumped on Craigslist and started scouring the gigs panel. Found a gig shooting NCAA lacrosse for $75 a day with some organization that then, after you took the photos, they sold them back to the parents or something. And while I was there, I was shooting. It was a 3-day tournament. On the last day, I got approached by a couple guys, and they were like, hey, did you take this photo? And I said, yeah, that's one of mine from the first day. And they go, well, we're from Adidas. We'd like to talk to you about licensing your image. All of our branding is well represented here, and blah, blah, blah. What's your licensing fee? And I had no idea what to say to them. So I just flew back with $125. And they go, oh, no. You're very new to this industry, aren't you? I go, yeah, this is my first month shooting. I don't know what I'm doing. And they were really cool about it. So, a couple weeks went by, and they called me back about the picture. And they ended up giving me, a lot of money for the photo. I'll say that. And that turned into, my first big gig and my first big publishing. It turned out to be a banner in all the Dick's Sporting Goods around the country. That money funded all my equipment that I needed and everything I needed to do going forward. And I just kind of kept practicing and learning and turned it into what it is now.
Wow. That is nice. That is nice. Now, is that photo still out there? Can people find that? Is that something that's still being used?
Yeah, I still have that photo too. Yeah, I mean, it's no longer being printed because I learned about licensing really quick after that, and I terminated the license after a year. But yeah, I still have it. It's still there. Again, it's nothing spectacular, but you know, for what it was needed for, it served the purpose for them, and that's all that kind of matters at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. So as I'm counting right, not to bring up bad memories of the economy, so about the time you started was about the time the economy slowed down, depending on where you are in the economy, but that's about where things just went public, that it was all getting bad. So
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It was not the time to quit a job and start a career that I knew nothing about. But those are usually the best times to do it because you make yourself work that much harder to get somewhere.
Yeah, it was the second time I'd seen things get bad. Right after 9/11, things really got bad, and then they got good, and then they got bad again. So hopefully there's some people that haven't lived through those. There may be some young people that haven't even lived through either one of those bad periods. Yeah. Let's talk about the look of these. I'm paging through. I'm just on. I think I'm on the website. I'm just in the first portfolio. I haven't gone in editorial special projects, but all of these have that wide angle look. What is that kind of your style that you're going for, or is it just in this particular portfolio that I'm in?
It's a little bit of both. A lot of the stuff on my website now is, I don't know, maybe a year, maybe 2 years old. I'm terrible at updating my website at the end of the day. But these are all photos that I still love and photos that I still get work from. The choice to shoot more wide angle than tight basically just comes from, you know, I want to shoot something that looks different, and that's where I want to create my style and my look for my photos. So I use a lot of lighting, wide angle stuff, just something that you wouldn't walk out of your front door and be able to see with the human eye. That's what defines the style. That's what defines the branding, all that type of stuff. And I learned that pretty early on from, you know, looking at photographers that I enjoyed, like David LaChapelle, or there's a photographer, Drew Gardner, in Europe. I mean, these guys are, when they take a portrait, it's not just a portrait. It's an entire scene. It's a frozen moment. And that's what I always try to create with my work was, you know, shoot something somewhere that makes sense to that subject. Don't just take a portrait of someone, you know. Like when I do a lot of my celebrity work, I try to get them often, you know, in a place that's uncomfortable for them, or in a place that's different than, you know, just a pretty picture on a fence or something like that. For me, it's really about creating an emotion and a feel, and, you know, showing the surroundings that really kind of brings the viewer into the photo and kind of lets them walk around in it a little bit.
And they fit, like, on our computer screens, they just blow up and fill up the whole frame. Right. You know, on your computer screen, they just really jump out at you, where if they were any other dimension, they just, you know, would be half screen or smaller. So they really go over to editorials here.
I don't even know what's in these sections. And I'm terrible at sectioning off my photos because all of them can fall into every single category. So it's
I'm surprised to hear. Just to bring up memories. I know each photo has a whole set of memories that come with it. You know, getting prepared, getting ready, scheduling the shoot, just on and on of details. Yeah, but even these fill up. They just fill up the entire, you know, your entire view and draw you in.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of these photos are kind of old, and it was kind of before I made the decision. I hardly ever shoot anything vertical anymore. I try to shoot everything horizontal for that reason that you're talking about. It fills up everything. Sometimes with vertical photos, it's easy to get lost. I think the next picture you're going to pull up is a vertical one. And it works for that scene because she still fills up the whole framing. But I tend to shoot more landscape than anything else anymore. It's probably like 95% landscape and very, very little vertical stuff.
And no bokeh that I've seen. You're not trying to get things distorted and out of focus. You're trying to, so far what we've seen, everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, I tend to do that. I tend to bring my subject out by using lighting. Often when things, with bokeh, with falling out of focus and stuff like that, it's fine. But it has this almost kind of, oh, this is a good picture because you shot it at 1.4 feel. And that's something I want to get away from, where I can sit there and light up a scene, light up a room, and then, let the scene dictate how the viewer sees it and not just me making them look at the portrait. Because oftentimes these portraits are not about the person in the photo all the time. It's about where they are. So if I'm blowing out the background out of focus, then you don't see where they are, and it kind of loses the story at the end of the day.
Good point. Yeah, because this one definitely lines up with that. Here we are, we're in this tattoo shop, and there's just hundreds of other things going on in the background. But yeah, you're on the subjects here. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can still look around it. You don't lose anything. You still know where they are. You can look in there and look at every little detail. It's just the way I see things, and that's how I think it's good storytelling. That's what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm. So are these you're obviously probably picking the location? Are you composing and suggesting? Are you the talent to the model, the subject, how to pose, or are you just letting them run through a lot of different things and then picking out the good ones? What's your thought when you're there?
Well, a lot of times when I'm setting up to do a portrait shoot, it kind of depends on the assignment. But more often than not, what I'll do is, and this is kind of a silly way of doing it, but I think it's an effective way, I'll actually send my subject like a paragraph of what the photo needs to feel like. And I'll put them in a scene like for this one with the girl with the dress flowing back, I wanted her to feel as if she was, the last woman left on the planet, and I'll create this whole story around it, send that story to them, and then they'll let them come up with how they think that needs to be interpreted. They know what I want, and they'll have their own idea of what I want, and that's the true art of collaboration with people. That's how you get the best out of it. I don't want to be a dictator on set. We all have a job to do, so let's just do it and do it well. So most of the photos in my portfolio, I've come up with like a short story that I'll send to them and let them kind of roll with it from there.
Good point. How many lights are you normally using? I think you said earlier you're using a lot of light. Like, this is not one light. This is 3 or 4 lights for this, or?
I think that was only 2. Just one on her and then one on her back, and then the sun was there, but it wasn't that intense. More often than not, my normal kit is about 5 lights for a single portrait. Like this one has 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 on it, 2 sides, 1 above, a big light in the front for fill, and there's probably something else there. But usually 4 or 5 lights is where I usually is my wheelhouse.
Mhm. That's how you're getting the jump off the page. I mean, they're lit.
Right.
You don't see the light. You just feel it. And
a lot of it, I'm not lighting the portrait with it. I'm actually lighting, parts of the room and parts of everything around them. It's almost how like a cinematographer approaches a movie set. You go in there and you want to light things up correctly. So if I bring someone to a portrait session and they're in a cool room, I might use 1 light on them and use 5 lights everywhere else.
Yeah, like that tattoo shop. That's all lit up. Interesting.
It's just important to realize when you're taking a picture that there's a lot more involved than just the person in front of the camera. It's creating that emotion. It's creating that scene. It's going out of your way to look at the details in a photo and light very specific things and stuff like that.
Mhm. I could see where companies would want to hire for this type of work. So I'm thinking your portfolio is really helping you bring business in. When that happens, do they kind of gravitate from what you're showing, or really dictate something totally different? When you take on a job, how far do you vary from your portfolio?
It's usually pretty spot on to what I shoot. When someone goes to my website, they know pretty much right off the bat what they're going to be getting. And, I don't want them to – I can do anything. If you want me to shoot a pretty girl on a fence somewhere, I'll do it. It's not out of my skill set. But there's a reason you're looking at my website to begin with. There's a reason you want to hire me. And that's what it all comes down to, is why would you waiver off of something that I normally already do? And I've turned down jobs like that. I don't want to go out of what my style is, because I feel like the photo is going to suffer. So, I want to create work that I'm good at for both me and my clients. I want to create work that, even though I'm being paid for, that I can still show in my portfolio. And, I know what I like to shoot, and I want to keep shooting it that way.
Yeah, that's a lot of work right there in that shot. That's a lot of planning and a lot of work right there.
Yeah, we had about 80 zombies for that. Every zombie, even though we don't see their face in this photo, a lot of them at least, every single zombie had full prosthetic makeup. It was hours upon hours upon hours of makeup to get that photo to work. And, there's not much Photoshop to this shot. The cityscape in the background, I created a little bit in Photoshop, but as far as the people in the photo, everyone you see was really there. It took hours upon hours to do it, but at the end of the day, it comes out just fantastic.
So is that inside, outside?
That was outside.
Outside, so you're having to deal with weather and lights and people needing to go somewhere, people showing up late, all those things.
Absolutely. I'm actually going through some other photos I'm going to send here to you, so you can take a look at some newer stuff.
Okay.
Give me one second here. Because you'll see that my style, even recently, hasn't changed. It's gotten better, but it's still the same stuff. But yeah, we can keep going with the website here.
Let me go over here, go down. See, I think I'm in special projects now. You're doing video also.
Yeah, video has become a powerhouse. You're missing out on a lot of cash if you're not shooting video when it comes down to it. Your cameras can do it. It's a very similar thing to shooting photos. It's a little bit harder because instead of having to tell a story in one frame, you have to tell a story in 24 frames and 24 frames a second, and, 3 seconds or whatever. It's just harder. You have to slow yourself down and create something. My last music video I just finished a couple weeks ago. I think it's at about 60,000 views currently, and the amount of planning that just goes into anything video related is unheard of. It's crazy. But you have to offer it. It's something that is, when I meet with a client for the first time, and no matter who they are, I always make the comment, well, do you have any video stuff? And they're like, oh, no, we didn't think about video, blah, 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 blah. And, more often than not, giving them a 1-minute video to talk about their company, while it's not a lot of work on our end, it can jump your money, your income like crazy. And it's just a little bit more work. Not much, but it's just a little bit more work.
So are you working on your projects the same team, or do you assemble a totally new team each time, or are you solo and then you go out and hire contract workers when you're done to finish off something?
More often than not, it's the same people. A few of my best friends work with me as my assistants and as other shooters that I'll throw work to all the time. Even on location, I'll make sure that they're usually budgeted in, on a flight or something, because it's very crucial to kind of have the same people in place over and over and over, just so they know what to do on set. There's no micromanaging at the end of the day. But yeah, it's usually the same people. It's about 3 of us, and then we rotate around with our makeup and hair people, but we have 2 people that we go to for most of everything. But yeah, I try to keep it, tight to who I know. I don't want to bring in new people and have to go through the whole no, put the light over there. That's where it goes. But because my staff and everyone already knows it, so it's usually the same people.
Good point. That keeps you in a more of a creative mode.
Yes.
So I should do. Yeah, these are just amazing. I found you through Wonderful Machine, going through there, and I think I filtered it down to fashion photographers. So obviously you're doing more than fashion, but that was the kind of the category I went through, and I keep hearing about Wonderful Machine, and it just keeps coming up on all these podcasts that I listen to. So I actually went to their website. It seems to have I don't remember it being easy to search, but that's how I came across it. When I dug into the portfolio, I was just like stuck going through it.
Oh, wow.
Left it open on my browser, so when I came back to my computer, it would be there. And then I think I emailed you, and pitched this idea for the interview, and so that's how we connected, was through Wonderful Machine.
Awesome, great. I just sent you a email with about 6 of my newest photos, by the way. Yeah.
Okay. So let me go.
It'd be fun to have you look at the work for the first time and talk to me about it a little bit too. And everything I sent, let me take a look what I sent here. Most of it's going to be client work, I think.
Okay. Let's see.
It should take a second here.
There it is. Here we go. So we are opening up new work that very few people have seen. That's amazing. I can see some things we were still seeing on the website. It's not it's not all blown out in the background a little bit, because that building's way back there. But
yeah, it's way back in the distance. This is in
cool.
Las Vegas out there, teaching with Tamron at the WBPI, and we took it a couple of days in town to go out and shoot. And we met up with this model, and we were walking down the road, and we found this cool car underneath a light in a gas station. So we just set up shop and shot it there.
So obviously it looks old, but the headlight's on, I think. Or you made it look like it was on?
No, that's Photoshop.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Just let me page up. Okay.
So
yeah,
I put this on there for a good reason. So this is my motorcycle club. I want to do a portrait of the two people who headed up. But in this scene, without lights, it was completely pitch black inside. So I lit up everything you see. So there's lights all the way back in the distance, so lighting up that back portion. There's lights on the 2 bikes. There's lights on right behind them. There's lights on them. There's everything in this has been lit in post, or not in post, but during the shoot. Besides the overhead chandelier and the overhead little lights on the left-hand side. But what I'm talking about is lighting a whole scene. It's easy to go in there, just put up a light and shoot them, but then you lose the location, you lose a lot of it. So being able to light an entire environment really becomes a great weapon in your arsenal as a photographer.
Yeah, are you using a particular brand? Are you using strobes?
Yeah.
Are you using anything?
Yeah, I use strobes. I use Photex Indra 500. Photex is my lighting sponsor. They make a great strobe that also talks to all their speed lights with their with radio communication. So in this, I think I use 4 Indra 500s and then 1 speed light just behind them on that table, hitting the back of their shoulders.
So here's a light, something right in there. Maybe something hitting this. Well, I guess that's the down lights from the track.
Yeah, those are hitting there. But there is a light way back in the distance lighting up that white wall behind them, too.
There's a light here, and then there's a light way back in the back. That's an awesome shot. That's some expensive motorcycles there, too. Yeah,
definitely.
So you say this is your motorcycle club? So this is one of your hobbies?
Yeah, I build and ride motorcycles, vintage motorcycles.
My page over here, the next one. Oh, wow. Yeah.
So again, you see all the lights there, and the complementing colors of the yellow and the blue. also the colors from the lollipop. It all kind of plays into each other, and very, very purposefully. Now we're talking more about color theory and complementing colors and what colors look good with each other and whatnot. So the blue under her eyes is kind of matching the blue behind her, while the pink is matching the lollipop, and the yellow in the lollipop is matching her dress. And it's kind of hard to see, but her tongue is also colored from the lollipop. It all kind of plays into each other. Into that.
Even some of that same color is down here in the lollipop under the eyes.
Yep.
Right in here. Yeah, that's a good call. It's a good call. Let's see. Oh, look at that. All kinds of things happening there.
Yep.
Good story. I'm seeing things as I keep looking. I see things that, there's gun, knife, model.
So, and the cool thing about this photo is we shot this at 2 o'clock on a sunny day. And we're outside in the sun. And what we're doing is using high-speed sync to really, really kill the sunlight and exposure with our shutter speed, and still using strobes to light our models to give the impression of nighttime. My shutter speed was probably around 1/2500th of a second at whatever f-stop I was at. But because we're shooting at such a high rate of high shutter speed, we're killing all the ambient light around us, and we can really manipulate our scene so that we can shoot something in the middle of the day and still make it look like nighttime. Having those in a skill set are invaluable to a client, because if they want to do a nighttime shoot but they're not available at night, you can still do one in the middle of the day. You just have to know how to do it. This is a cool technique to be able to do those type of things.
Yeah, I think it's like it's midnight on a dark alley somewhere.
Yeah, it was 2 o'clock on the top of a parking garage.
Yep. Everybody's their normal work pattern. It's safe, and you're in control of the situation. So that could be done at night, but then you're out in a dark alley somewhere, and it's probably harder to do.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to do it. Sure.
Even finding your gear sometimes in the dark is a chore. Set something down, you can't even find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is my Halloween shoot. I do a big Halloween shoot every year. It's just something fun that I do. With my friends and I, we get together and we come up with the whole idea. This year was a Ouija board type of thing. And that's all makeup on her. She was really there. And we had a makeup artist come in and do makeup for like 4 or 6 hours. And again, we're lighting this whole scene. Behind them, we actually forgot our fog machine. So we had my assistant grab about 4 candles, light them, and then when I told him to, he blew them out. And that created the fog behind her. We just put a light behind her to light the fog. But yeah, we're just, and you're lighting a whole scene. You're creating a scene, like a movie still, if you want to call it that. Where every element kind of makes sense and plays off the next element.
So this project like this is something, this is work for trade. You just get all your friends together. You've got the idea, the location, and just assembling the whole project. But then you come up with this timeless piece, work of art that would help you book business down the road.
Yeah, for sure. And my friends love doing this stuff. It's fun. It's easy to everyone has a friend who's a photographer. Everyone's got a friend who has a camera. It's one of those things. But my friends really support what I do, and they love that I do. And, if they get to be a part of that collaboration, if they get to be a part of creating something like this, they're happy to do it. And, when I put out a posting about this on my Facebook, like, hey, I'm looking for people for my Halloween shoot this year, my email just got flooded with people who wanted to be involved with it because they know it's going to be a fun project. It's going to be a fun, cool picture at the end of the day. It's a lot of fun. So it's never been an issue, finding people to be in photos. If you're creating cool work, everyone wants a good picture of themselves. Everyone does. So if you're creating cool work, then you'll be able to find people, no problem.
But this is way, way better than, showing up at a park, doing the model mayhem, find the model, show up at a park, shoot, edit, done. This is another level of planning and thought to create a work of art. Yeah, this
Thank
is awesome. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's what, if some of us that are listening, me included, we need to take that into consideration. But this is not so complicated you can't do it. It's just planning and bringing the team together. And there's a team in the picture, all these friends, and there's probably a team helping you put this on too. There's several people on the shoot.
Definitely. And you know, like you said, it isn't hard to do this stuff at all. It's I feel like as photographers, it's hard to get inspired as a photographer when everyone kind of shoots the same stuff. And, you know, I made it a point in my career, and I've said this in other articles and interviews, that when I first started coming up, you know, the first probably 3 years, I made it a point not to look at other photographers' work because I didn't want to be influenced by other photographers necessarily. I wanted to just be influenced by myself and go in my own brain and figure things out. So because of that, I formed this style, and which is, you know, not a very uncommon looking style of photography. A lot of commercial work looks like this, a lot of lights, a lot of editing, whatever. But I created a way of telling my own stories and using stuff that when I was a child I was influenced by, scary movies and music and cartoons and stuff like that, and brought that into my adult photography work. It's allowing yourself to not rely on equipment necessarily, meaning you don't need a 1.4 lens. You can create cool work with anything, not relying on, oh, this is a picture of a hot chick that everyone's going to look at and like it because it's a beautiful woman. That's great, but you can create something with a beautiful woman in a photo, or a beautiful man, whatever, that also shows you off as a photographer, and not just you shooting a pretty person. Creating a scene, creating a feeling, creating an environment for that subject to live in for the photo shows everything off, and that makes you a better photographer at the end of the day. We're here to create art and create work that should be, like you said, should be timeless, should last, and should evoke an emotion in someone. And if you can create something that invokes different types of emotions in people, like this one, someone would look at this and laugh, someone could be scared, someone could be like, you know, whatever, then you're doing something right. And that's what you need to be as a photographer. You're a creator, you know. Create something that looks like you shot it, and that also makes everyone in the photo look just as good as the picture is going to turn out to be.
Mhm. Mhm. What type of lens are you using? I mean, obviously it's a wide lens.
Yeah. So on that one, it was the Tamron 15 to 35.
This one here. Mhm.
No, I'm sorry. It was the Tamron.
Let me come back.
35 1.8. That's what that was.
Okay. Yeah. Tamron's awesome.
And this was for a magician client. And I lit this one a little bit differently in the fact that there's two side lights still, but instead of lighting it from above, I lit them from underneath, which is usually a big no-no in the portrait world. But for this type of photo, you know, like the mad scientist kind of feel to it, the classic magician feel, you want it to be a little maniacal at the end of the day. You know, he has the look with the mustache and the jacket. So let's make him look like an evil scientist, a lab wizard type thing. And all that smoke is real. Yeah. Everything like that.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me, in a way, my first exposure to two-side life was Joe Grimes, you know, doing the kind of Nike commercial. And
he's great.
He's got the lights on either side, and he talks about how he just did that for years and years and years, and kind of famous for it now. But he would always, have the lights straight on, you know, big parabolic umbrella, just flat lighting or butterfly lighting.
Yeah.
But, with this one, kind of doing the monster lighting and then two-side lights. Perfect.
Yeah.
Are you using a fog machine, or how are you doing the fog?
Yeah, we fog machine on that one. So that's all was in the shot. That's one exposure. You know, just nailed it and did a little bit of coloring in the post processing.
Mhm. Perfect. I bet he loved that. That'll probably is on his website or be on his website soon.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I didn't even notice the watermark. You do watermarks. They're up here in the top left-hand corner. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I do a really small one. It's just JT, and I designed it so it looks kind of like a pi symbol. So it's something that people look at and they recognize, but it's not so like big and cursive written in the photo or something like that. It's just subtle and there.
Very subtle. I didn't even notice until that last shot. And, yeah, there it is, too. It's either on the right or the left.
Yeah.
Perfect.
A lot of times, this is kind of a secret, but whatever. On editorial work, on all my work, I'll actually hide that logo somewhere in it. Like for this one, I would maybe hide it in the tire, like blend it in so you can't see it unless you look for it. And when things get published, I always point it out, like, oh, this is my photo. I can prove it. Here's my logo right here in the corner.
Now, on the website, are you doing that too? Is there a logo hidden there, or are you not worrying about it?
No, I think some of them have logos, some of them don't. Some of them actually might have my old logo, which is still a JT. I think I try to keep my logo off most of them. Just because you're on my website, you know who you're looking at that point.
Right.
But yeah, I think actually the portrait you're looking at now, this was also shot on a really, really cloudy, rainy day, where we put a light outside the window. I wiped the window down, and then the light inside, so it made it look like a sunny day at the end of the shoot.
It works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon right there.
Yep.
Yeah, you've even got it high, so it's got the shadows coming down at an angle, a natural angle.
Exactly. Yep. Creating sunlight is something I do a lot in my photos. And, yeah, just put the light where the sun would normally be, and that'll give you the same look.
Another hard thing to do, I've done a little bit of real estate photography. All these lines are appropriate. They're not distorted. Shooting wide like that, it would be easy to get this kind of turned the wrong way or things distorted a little bit. So everything looks very natural. Well, let's go over here. So you had mentioned in the pre-call a workshop that you've got coming up. Looks like a team of folks here.
Yeah, so it's March 31st, April 2nd in Texas. It's the Precision Camera University workshop, and it's just, I think what it is we're all teaching about 3 or 4 hours per day, where with me you're going to learn what it takes to light a scene, what it takes to light an individual, and how to bring those elements together to create a story that, a viewer can actually come up with it in their own head and things like that. Really cool industry professionals being involved, really cool companies and equipment will be there. So it'll be a good time. So if you're in the Texas area, I suggest checking it out.
Yeah, and it's March. It's a good time to be in Texas. Not too hot. So
very true. Yeah, very true.
Perfect. So here's the website. If you're watching the video, you can see the URL right here at the top. We'll put that in the blog. And then here's Jonathan's website. Let me go back to the home page right here. There you've got Jonathan Thorpe right there. Yep. And then if I click contact information, what do we have there? Form. There's his number. Don't call him. Send him an email. Send him an email. It's better to get organized through emails right there. Yeah.
Or you can call me. I'll talk to you about anything. Go ahead.
Is that your cell phone there on the contact?
Yeah. So send me a text, whatever.
A lot of times it is. But the first time I called someone, they literally answered the phone, and I was like, well, amazed. And he was actually at a workshop in New York. It was a Nashville fashion photographer, and he had answered the phone. I was surprised, but it's a one-man show, so he answers his phone. So
yeah, I answer mine, so available.
Advice for others. You've given lots of tips, and we kind of covered everything. But what would be kind of your overall, looking back over the last 8, maybe even the year before you launched, what would be your, a couple of things you would say to folks out there that are trying to get to this level? I mean, obviously you're very advanced. You have your own style, have your own brand, and it's happening and it's working. But what would you encourage others to do, and some tips for them?
Sure. The biggest tip I tell a lot of photographers is, do personal work that you enjoy to shoot. Tap into your brain and do different things that you don't see other people doing. A lot of my work on my website is personal work that, necessarily I didn't get paid for, I mean, I did get paid for it, but the photo you see on there is something that I did during the shoot that I knew was just going to go on my website. So shoot stuff that you enjoy, that you like, and put that work out there in the world, because it'll show through your work. People will know that you're enjoying shooting if you keep shooting the same type of stuff, and that in turn will lead to you creating your own branding, and to you creating your own style. And once you have those things, you're set. Work kind of just starts to happen because people know what they're going to get. If you're shooting a lot of different things, it gets confusing for a client. Well, they say, oh, he's good at this, but not so great at this. But if you just give them one thing, like, this is what I shoot, this is what I'm good at, this is what I want to shoot, you'll find work. You really will. So shooting personal projects and shooting things that, are interesting to yourself, super important. Do things that, are different. Shoot stuff wide angle that's normally not shot wide angle. If you're normally shooting things standing up, lay on the ground and shoot it that way. Just shoot things from different perspectives and see what works and what doesn't. I'm 6'4", so most of my portraits I'm standing above them. So I usually try to get as low as I can, because that's a vantage point that I'm not used to seeing. It's a different perspective for me. And that can create a different type of work and a different type of inspiration. So just try different things and see what works for you and what doesn't. Don't get stuck into a routine of, well, I'm going to hire the Model Mayhem model this weekend, and I'm going to shoot that, and I'm going to do it with an 85 millimeter. Just try different stuff on a shoot. Use every lens in your bag on one portrait and see what works. Just don't pigeonhole yourself into one set thing at the end of the day.
Good point. Yeah, I love that. And you can see your brand come through on every one of those, And I guess you probably have some things you're not putting in your portfolio because you know what your brand is, but you tried something and it doesn't fit or it's not ready, so you
right.
It's on a hard drive somewhere.
Absolutely. There's a lot of work that I get paid for that I don't show, because, like you said, it doesn't fit with my branding. It's stuff that I can do, and that if the contract is great, then I'll do it. But a lot of my stuff is stuff that I shoot personally, and that's what helps me get hired for gigs.
Well, folks, we're going to wrap this up. So you're listening to an interview with Jonathan Thorpe. This is his website right here. I'm going to go back to the home page so you can see that. And be sure to check out his work, share the information, and thank you for listening to the interview with Jonathan Thorpe. This is Kenneth Purdom.
Thank you.
Perfect. Good morning, everyone. This is Kenneth Purdom, and I'm here with Lee Perry from Atlanta. And she's an hour ahead, so it's almost lunchtime for you down in Atlanta. How's the weather there today?
It's damp and gross, and it's Leah, by the way.
Say it again.
It's Leah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, my goodness. I blew the introduction. Yeah. My goodness.
Well, when you see it just online, it's hard to get the pronunciation of everybody's names.
And I found you through Wonderful Machine is how I came across your website. I just did a filter for fashion photographers, and that's literally, and I thought, oh, there's somebody in Atlanta, and you were real nice and responded the other day, and what we're doing is just trying to do short interviews for our group, which is a Facebook group called Nashville Fashion Photographers, and it's a group of photographers, models, lighting technicians, video guys. We've got hair and makeup artists on there. So we just get together once a month, and I'm trying to put audio and video out to inspire them and just help them be encouraged with what they're trying to do.
Oh, sounds great.
We're doing today. But it's also raining and cloudy and hot here in Nashville, Tennessee. But
I enjoy Nashville. I've been once, so it's a fun city.
Really? So you work up here sometimes?
Oh no, I was just visiting.
Okay.
So more as a tourist.
Mhm. By the way, if you're listening to this, we also have we'll have a video and an audio file for this, so we'll put it on YouTube, and you can see that, and you can go over to NashvilleFashionPhotographers.com and pick that information up there. But give us a short overview of who you are and what you're doing in the wonderful world of photography.
Well, I grew up in the Boston area, so just north of Boston, and I went to undergrad at Emory University, which is how I ended up in Atlanta. And then I took a couple years off from school because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with my life, and somebody told me about Portfolio Center, which is a commercial arts school in Atlanta. And so I went there for graduate school. So I had done photography since I was a teenager, but I wasn't sure how to turn it into a living. And so I went to Portfolio Center for commercial photography, and that's what's helped me figure out how to make money doing what I do. And I've decided to stay in Atlanta. It's definitely a trickier city to decide to be a fashion photographer in, but I have a great studio here, and I've been able to build a business here, so I'm happy that I made that decision. And it's warmer than up north, so that definitely was a factor in it.
But that's a good point. Almost too hot at times, but the weather's on your side most of the time.
Yeah, I'll take too hot over ice and cold any day.
So I've not heard of Portfolio Center. So that's like a trade school or educational program to kind of get you started?
Yeah, so it's their main competitor in Atlanta is Creative Circus, if you've heard of that one. So it's a 2-year program, a lot more of a trade school. So I only recommend going there if you know exactly what you want to do. And so they're known for their graphic design and art direction and photography programs.
So, how long have you? Would you call yourself a full-time photographer? What would that time frame look like?
How would you define that?
I know, because all of us probably have different things we're working on. Yeah, I didn't know if. It may not be full-time. I'm not sure. You can go your portfolio.
I am full-time.
Yeah.
So I would say full-time photographer without assisting work thrown in, because I started, like a lot of people, working as a photo assistant out of school. And so some people have what I believe a mistaken idea that you're either a photo assistant or you're a photographer, and there was a lot of years where I was doing both. And I would say it's been about 4 years that I've been earning a living as a photographer solely.
Yeah, I spoke to Westside Studios, and Michael that runs that and owns that. He started out as an assistant, and he's huge at encouraging people that that's what they should do. But it's amazing. A lot of people kind of resist that path. I think they're kind of think they can watch the videos and buy a camera and go do it. And so I respect you for being an assistant and going through that. That's a process.
Well, yeah, you learn a lot as you develop relationships with the photographers you work with, a lot about the business end of things too. So you learn, the technical skills that you might not necessarily pick up in school, because there's only so much you can absorb in school and through tutorials and things like that until you actually use it in real life. And you're like, oh, wait, this one thing that I didn't think was important is, or vice versa. And so I think that is a lot of what you can learn through assisting, is getting that real-world knowledge and paying the bills at the same time. But
What types of projects you're working on now? I'm on your website, and direct me if I need to go anywhere, if you want to point anything out. I'm just paging through and giving some content for folks to look at here. This is an amazing portfolio. Awesome. There's a lot of work here too. I'm just probably on the first tab here. I think there were several tabs back at the beginning.
I can't see what you're looking at right now.
Oh, I may have. Can you see my screen okay? Do I need to change something here on the system?
I can see your screen. Oh, now I see. No, I don't see the website. I see like a black screen with a bunch of icons.
Let's make sure I'm sharing. We had it a while ago, but I may have turned something on. Let's see here. It's sharing. Could you see it at one time?
I could see my site up at one time, and then I see at the very bottom like a Chrome icon with Fashion Leah Perry. But are you actively looking at my site right now?
I do. I have it pulled up on this side. I'm on kind of a treehouse photo, and then it has a close-up of the dress. So it has, I'm assuming, it is a model in a treehouse. So that's where I'm at on the website. And I'm just checking I'll edit this out, but I'm just checking here to see.
Okay, I see something where it says,
I'm sharing my screen again. And make sure I've got that highlighted. And we are recording, and it's recording video and audio, and then it should be sharing the desktop.
Well, if you would like, I can just pull up my website on my own screen, and I can probably figure out where you are.
Right. Yeah, and then if anything you want me to go to, you just let me know. It's easy to navigate the way you've got that set up.
Okay, so you're at the treehouse? Okay.
Yes. But I'm going to be at the beginning, so you just take off, and I'll track with you.
How do you want me? Do you want me to just tell you about these shoots, or?
Well, I was thinking my overall question there was, what are you working on most recently? And then if that's a visual where we can see it on the website, that would be awesome.
Let's see.
I know we all have projects we're working on right now that may not be featured, but you may have something on here that's recent. And I would just page through the fashion. I haven't even gotten into the stills or the personal work.
Yeah, the stills and personal haven't been updated as recently. So I've been working on, over the past year, with several designers and rebranding and just bringing kind of my work to the next level. So one thing that people have been telling me since I was a student over 10 years ago that that you should show mostly personal work. And I think before I was booking a lot of work, I never believed anybody when they said that. And now when I show my portfolio, I've been to a couple portfolio reviews, and I was in one in New York, I believe in June, this fall, and then another one in Atlanta. And most of the work that I show is personal work because that's the most interesting. And I realized I'm like, that's actually what people are most excited about. I don't know why it took me so long to figure that out, even though that's what everybody tells you. So that's what...
Your portfolio, so when we click on your personal work, that would be the same thing you would walk in and start showing?
So that's a little confusing. My fashion work, so most of the work on my website is personal. What I've put under the personal work tab is the stuff that might be a little bit different than my brand. And so so even like that very first series that you see, the Sporty series in my fashion book, that I shot on my own while I was in New York this spring. And that was just because I needed some New York models and New York work in my book. And so so I flew up to New York and found a studio and had one of the Atlanta agencies set me up with one of the places that they place models at. So I met with people at Ford and got some models and put together a couple shoots while I was up there. So that's what that one is. But that work is part of my brand.
Okay. So it's consistent. Yeah. So when you back to what you were thinking and saying there with the other idea of personal work, is that featured here, or is it totally different? When you were talking about folks say show personal work.
Yeah, so that when it's more of what I'm shooting on my own, and so my personal tab on my website is a little bit different, and that's, I think, one of the most confusing things about our industry is that there's the same words for different things. So.
Yeah, I thought that was just me. I thought maybe I was behind in my learning the lingo of, but it's just everyone. I was in the studio a few weeks ago, and they were saying no, it's even different by regions and cities and industries, even down to some of what they call the gear. And what they were doing, these guys had been assistants, and they were talking about when other people come in, they almost have to teach other assistants their version of what they call things so they can do their workflow together. So it does get a little confusing.
I mean, my work in Atlanta is considered fashion. My work when I show it in New York is considered the same exact work that I'm showing. It's considered fashion lifestyle. Whatever, I can't really define it because it doesn't actually make that much sense, but my work is not lifestyle at all in the Atlanta market. So you can take from that what you will. But it's just, like you're saying, in different regions, things are classified different. So it makes it very confusing.
And then you have the stills, which are that pretty much says it. But when you get into the stills, you're, I see jewelry here. I see, I guess you could say beauty, the makeup, and these are awesome. And then it gets back into wardrobe. So,
so a lot of, thank you. A lot of what I do to earn a living is product photography. So, and the same where, a lot of the, just like fashion, the product that you might shoot on the day-to-day is, your bread and butter, but might not be the most exciting thing to show on a website. So I show, most of these are personal projects in my still life portfolio. So even though I shoot still life, sometimes 2 weeks out of a month.
Now, at a photo shoot, or could you combine those ideas where you're shooting, I guess a still of the fashion, and then a few minutes later or later in the session you're shooting that, more of a fashion lifestyle shoot, or you usually divide all of that up?
It's usually divided because you have to, because you have a product stylist and a still set and that team working on it. I do have some smaller clients that can't afford to have completely separate days of, product and on figure work. And so, but it's not, like I don't shoot a piece on a still set and then put it on a model. Like we'll do the still shots and then we'll do the on figure shots because models are quite expensive. And so if you have a model on set, you want to work with that model and cut them when you're done. So.
That's a good point. Yeah. I went to your About page and got you there with a little camera, so you started quite early.
I'm glad my dad found that picture.
Yeah, that's good that he had it. I mean, just think no one knew what was happening. Where was he the inspiration? Looking back, was there a moment you thought, okay, this is kind of cool, and then something happened and you wanted to pursue this? Or how did that process start?
Well, a couple of my childhood friends did a little bit of modeling, and I was into photography probably, starting like freshman year in high school. Like I had my dad's old Pentax and shooting a lot of black and white film and spending a lot of time in the dark room. So that's how I got started. So I had a lot of pictures of like my friends and a lot of pictures of cats. And so that was my start into photography. And then I pursued it at Emory. I studied business, but I was also a studio art minor, so I studied photography further there. And it was there where I kind of figured out. It was actually at the very end. It was one of the business school seminars that somebody told me about Portfolio Center and about commercial photography. So that was the direction I moved in from there. But I didn't even know that existed. And even in school, like, I didn't know things like product stylists existed. So I wasn't that into still life at first because I'm not a very good stylist. And I was like, oh, there's somebody whose profession it is to make the folds look beautiful. You have the patience to steam and press things perfectly. So that was a revelation there. So as I learned what resources were out there and what my strengths were, that kind of developed what direction I moved in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. The only photographers I thought were the ones that traveled to the retail stores and did the, the studio setup at the Walmart or the Kmart, and I just thought they're newspaper photographers or those guys that tried to oversell parents that couldn't afford to buy photos. I thought that's the only two kinds of photographers there are, is newspapers and the Olin Mills guys, I guess. So, yeah, I never pursued it until recently, and so many years went by before I went back and tried to figure it out. So, I may have your website back on. What I did, I had your website open several times, and I may have confused our meeting system on. So I closed out the other browsers, and now I only have your website open on one browser. So I'm thinking you may be able to see what I'm seeing.
I can't, I'm sorry to say.
I don't know what's wrong. Oh, well, it's a mystery. Okay. That's all right. You've seen your website. It's beautiful. It's a lot of variety here. I mean, you've got studio, you've got all around the country, so it's not just, obviously you're just not shooting in Atlanta. I mean, here it looks like you've been to California. I don't know. I'm seeing a beach with rocks. So I'm thinking that's California. Maybe not. Could
Close.
be North Carolina.
Oregon coast.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So West Coast, just further north and a little bit colder.
Yeah. Yeah, you can kind of see that when as I go down, and there's the kind of the fog in the background. Yeah. Yeah, I've only been out in that area a couple of times. Was in Seattle recently and LA years ago.
Yeah, I'm hoping, I'm talking with a client of mine. We're trying to plan a trip out to California to shoot out there, maybe March or April, but we'll see. But I've been to California a couple times. I haven't shot there, so that would be very exciting to get to do.
Your Instagram looks good too. I mean, it's website quality too, so it's not just a lot of silly things, which I know probably mix it up to create interest there, but it looks very clean and very consistent. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Good. Yeah. There's some architectural work there. Really cool building. Yeah. Somebody's cat.
Yeah, that's the fun of oh, yeah, I guess I do still sometimes take pictures of cats. I haven't grown up that much since I was 14.
Well, you got to mix it up.
Well, that's like a kind of fun thing about Instagram is that you can post some silly things, or when I've tested out different cameras, I can, just shoot whatever with it, and if it's cool but not necessarily something I would ever put up on my website, I can still post it to Instagram. So it's one of the fun things about it.
Do you have several people that inspire you, or are you more inspired by ideas, concepts, and movies? What's kind of the inspiration behind your drive with photography?
I mean, there's not one single driving factor. There's definitely, like we were talking about, I think before we started recording, like I go on my Behance page and look at the feed and use that for inspiration, and even other people's Instagram feeds. I've always loved like artists like Tim Walker and many of the other like famous fashion photographers out there. I like to go to Barnes and Nobles, or if I'm in New York, I try to make at least one stop to Around the World magazine and just buy the magazine that I find prettiest. I usually give myself a budget of $100 because you can go completely nuts buying these fancy art magazines. But and so I'll get inspiration that way. And then a lot of it is, my team will come up with ideas. So so sometimes shoots are my ideas, or sometimes it's a collaboration between myself and one of my team members who's like, oh, I saw this really cool image, and we'll build an idea that way.
Around the World magazine. I haven't heard of that one. Huh.
Yeah, it's in New York. It's standing room only. They discourage you from like hanging out in there too long, and they just have everything. For magazines. So I'll just kind of like spend a couple hours flipping through and just pick the ones that catch my eye the most. So last trip I picked up Sean.
Excuse me. It's a brick and mortar store that you're going to.
Oh, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I still love printed things. My portfolio is actually a printed book, which I know people kind of go back and forth between digital books and printed ones. I love and hate printing my book at the same time, but in the end, I love printing it. So I like picking up and getting a print magazine.
I like it. I think I've seen, and I think that people are moving back to something they can pick up for portfolios and things like that.
It definitely makes people look at it differently than they do. They'll look more slowly if they like it. If they don't like it, they'll look through it quite fast. But no matter what kind of medium you bring, but it's nice that if they enjoy your work and are enjoying your portfolio, it gives them time to enjoy each image.
You mentioned Tim Walker. Seeing a book that my daughter pointed out years ago, and maybe 3 years ago, not too long ago, but it was a book he had published of his work. Couldn't get the pictures out of mind, couldn't remember his name, and I think just last week I was texting her to ask, who was that? I said, who was that book you showed me at the Vanderbilt bookstore? Who was it? And she knew exactly and texted me back. And so I was just trying to do a Pinterest board of some of his work, some of his editorial stuff. So he's very inspirational. But
yeah.
But your work, I could see where you could pin your pictures too. I mean, just go out and Google you and create a Pinterest board and not try to copy you, but just get some inspiration from what you're doing here and what you posted in your website. What are some things you're looking at if you look out the next couple of months, the next couple of years that you've got on your to-do list creatively?
Well, the next couple of months, because I would like to update my still life book just because I haven't shot for that in a while. I would like to do a little bit more traveling. So if I don't make California happen this winter, I'll make somewhere happen this year. It's because I enjoy shooting in my studio, and I really enjoy having a studio, but there's just something magical that you can get from shooting somewhere beautiful that you can't capture any other way. So that's definitely on my list of things to do. And right now what I'm doing is probably completely uninspiring, but because it's the end of the year / beginning of the year, I'm making sure all my stuff is ready for my accountant. And so when I get off this call with you, I'll be filing and organizing and making sure everything's right in my QuickBooks. So the unglamorous part of photography is what I'm working on next.
Good point. Yeah. So you put it all in QuickBooks. So there's a note for anyone listening. That may be a tool you want to use, QuickBooks.
Yeah. And my my accountant was horrified, politely. She's very Southern, so she was politely horrified with my bookkeeping skills and everything else before I started going to her. So she set me up with my QuickBooks, and I keep track of all my receipts, and it makes a big difference at the end of the year. So.
Yeah, I'm just paging through your portfolio here. I'm kind of down at the bottom. Oh, wow, that's like a studio shot, girl with the flower head. Yeah, that's really cool. So getting ready for tax season. Here it sounds like you're well on your way, though, if you're using QuickBooks, so that should be somewhat easy. What would be your advice to someone, in our Facebook group? There are folks that are just starting. They're doing the, they show up, no plan. They've got a camera, may have a light, may not, but they're just at that find a model and shoot stage. Show up and shoot, and they haven't really put any more thought into it than that. What would be your advice to kind of that group? Because that's what I think a lot of our group is made of, because they're just getting started and they're using the Facebook group to start making those connections and learn.
Right. As far as how to shoot, or because they're probably not even worried about business yet, and so I guess on a shooting end is to just shoot as often as you can. And what I would see, especially if we were talking about, people being assistants, people don't become photographers if they don't actually shoot anything. And that sounds like a kind of ridiculous thing to say, but it's so true. And it took a while. So even now I shoot for myself once a month, sometimes once every other month. And if you're not shooting professionally, you should be shooting a couple times a month at least. They could be really big productions, or just finding, especially for fashion, a guy or a girl that you find beautiful and just asking them to go somewhere or go to your studio and photograph them. And then the other thing is, once you are comfortable with your camera and with your light or two lights, is every time try something new. So it could either be, anything from like a different modifier, or from trying to elicit a different expression from a model that you haven't gotten before. Or it could be something more major, but I would definitely do something new every shoot and try to experiment and allow yourself to fail. So like have the sure thing, like I know I can get a good picture for this model in the shoot, and then I'm going to try this one weird thing and see if it works. And if it works, you learn something, and if it doesn't work, you also learn something. So.
So do you keep list of ideas of things you're still wanting to do? Little thing of just try this the next shoot, or does it just come to you at the shoots?
It usually comes to me, and this is not something I do necessarily on a client shoot. Although I often do it at the end of a client shoot, if we have a little extra time, I'll be like, hey, do you want to try this? But again, you want to make sure that you satisfy your client and keep on your production schedule before you're messing around experimenting. But even then, as long as we have the time, a lot of them really appreciate that and are excited to see something new. So sometimes there's lists. I carry a moleskin in my purse, and I have them scattered everywhere. And so I jot down notes or ideas in there, and sometimes they just come to me during the shoot where I'm like, let's try this thing. And so the more things that you try, the more that you'll have in your back pocket when you have a job that you need to accomplish a lot for.
And just so you know, I pulled up your Facebook. I had it open, and so I've got that. If you want to point out anything there, you may. If your Facebook looks awesome too. It's all very professional, very consistent. So.
Thank you. One thing that I would, when I was a fashion photography teacher, that I would have my new students do, I would insist that they shoot a few projects with a prime lens, because a lot of them were not understanding what their zoom lenses were doing. And so, or if they couldn't afford a prime lens, I told them to take a piece of gaff tape and tape their zoom lens down and make it into a prime lens essentially for that shoot. So they could only shoot at 70 millimeters or whatever they chose for that shoot so they could really understand it. And that was a good exercise.
How would you jump out and be an assistant the first time? You go back to that. How was that? Just volunteering to get in and then eventually being hired, or was it learn photography and then kind of put your services out there and be an assistant and get paid?
Well, I can't really remember. I mean, it was, as a student, I was assisting my classmates. I will say that when people approach me to assist me and they will send me an email and say, I want to learn photography, I have zero experience, have never been to school, I'll work for you for free, I always say no, because they are a hindrance instead of help. So I feel like even if you want to have what I call like a one-day internship, you need to at least have a basic knowledge, because I wouldn't want somebody on my set that could injure me, the model, themselves, or my gear. And so I would have at least a basic understanding. I think I don't think a formal education is necessary, but I think a little schooling is a really important thing, just to get a background behind you. And so you know what? Actually, I did have an internship when I was a student. I interned at Turner Studios. And that was pretty awesome because that studio has some money, and so they had all kinds of gear I could play with, and they had 4 staff photographers I could work with. So essentially I did assist for free for a quarter.
Is that Turner as in the network Turner?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
And so they have a still studio. So, where they would shoot portraits of people and things like that.
Yeah, one of their directors of photography spoke at an event I was at. She was like the director of photography for 25 years for their productions, and that was very, I guess, inspirational. But she said it was a lot of work. Some of the movies that they put together, and it was just. She was ready to be done with it when she left.
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of my internship too was just painting the psych wall. So there's there's all those parts of the job too. And
there's different kinds of assisting. I mean, you could say, I don't know. I just recently was exposed to this the whole concept and industry of assisting. There's carrying the bag. There's technical assistance. There's first assistant, second assistant, and third assistant. So I guess, is there a certain place people need to jump in at? With,
the bottom.
Bottom. Paint the wall and carry the bag.
Yes.
Yep.
And then you'll move your way up. So.
Yeah, and there's just help with catering. Get the coffee and clean up. That sort of assisting. So. You can learn a lot just being in an environment and watching.
And a lot of it is just seeing what needs to be done and taking care of it. And that's what people appreciate, and that's what, especially when I was new, if the floor is dirty, sweep it. Because I didn't know how to put all the gear together at that point in time. But I at least knew, okay, maybe I should clean up this mess. And people appreciate some initiative where you don't have to tell somebody to do every little thing.
Well, before I turn off record here and we finish up, give us, if someone Googles, what do you want them to Google you? Somebody's listening and what would be the easiest way to find you?
Leah Perry or Leah Perry Photography would be the easiest way.
If you're watching that's what I have pulled up if you're on the video. But thank you for hanging out with us today and helping us and getting the year off to a good start. So We appreciate that. Inspirational and educational information. Yeah. You've
you're welcome.
Been around the block on photography. That's cool to talk to somebody that understands that. And